who? I don't know what I'm doing. Okay. Dear Diary, October 12th, 1989. Dear Diary, my science teacher is out to get me. Actually, no, she's rather nice. But the entire science department is out to get me because, the quizzes are very, very hard. And so, very hard, very terrifying. So that's why I'm going to study for this quiz now. Okay, so, I'm going to teach you guys about muscles and like the little itsy bitsy parts of muscles. So, if you have a muscle, here's the. Man, that doesn't even show up, does it? Let's pretend that that's a tendon. And here's your muscle. Okay. Muscles are made out of like fibers, yeah? An individual muscle cell will be called a muscle fiber. So an entire muscle, like this one, is then made up of little bundles of muscle cells, aka muscle fibers, aka myocytes, whatever you want to call them. And these like bundles right here are called fascicles. I don't even know if you can read that, I'm sorry. And then each fascicle is a bundle of individual muscle cells. So that's what we would call that. And then, so yeah, that's how a muscle is made of. And then each little, you can think of it as 3 layers of a muscle. Each one is covered by like a protective tissue covering. And so your entire muscle is covered by something called the epimysium. And epi is a prefix that means on top. It's the same as like your epidermis, which is the like top layer of your skin. It's on the outside. So yeah, your muscles are covered in that stuff. And then each fascicle, little bundles of muscle cells, are covered by another layer of connective tissue called the. I'm so sorry that the camera's so bad. Called fascicles are covered by the perimysium. Peri is a prefix that means like around. So each of these bundles are covered by. I'm sorry. By like this perimysium that goes around them. Yeah. Why? Because as much as Heather eats, she's gonna throw it all up, unfortunately. And then you've got your individual muscle cells. They are also covered in connective tissue, and that is called the endomysium. I believe endo means like inside. It's on the like very inside of all the muscles. So yeah, that's your protection. And then I know, right? Grow up. Oh my gosh, Heather makes me so mad. She is. But don't tell her I said that. Yeah, okay. Okay, so then you think like your tendons, right? Tendons are the connective tissue that connects your muscles to your bones. So what these tendons are these 3 layers of connective tissue, the epimysium and the perimysium and the endomysium. They like all come together. And then on the outside of the muscle, they all like fuse together right here to form the tendon. And that's what connects your muscle to your bone. Wow, that's a nice scribble. That probably looks okay. It doesn't matter. Okay, so in addition to, so yeah, that's that. I'm literally just looking at like my teacher's PowerPoint and then saying the information again just to get it in my head. So, another word for like a muscle cell would also be like, we have muscle cell, muscle fiber. There's also myocyte, and the prefix myo basically means muscle, anything to do with muscle. Yeah. Heather's got some strong muscles. That's how she pushes other Heather over. I'm trying to like learn how to do push-ups, so like strengthen my muscles, but yeah, she can still push me over. I'm pretty weak. I can't even do a single push-up. Okay. So now I'm gonna, erase this wonderful drawing that probably just looks like a scribble. It's fine. And we're gonna look a little bit closer at the structure of a muscle. So, like if you learn in like biology or whatever, all your cells have a plasma membrane. Muscles have muscle cells have a plasma membrane too, but it's called the sarcolemma instead of the plasma membrane. And once again, like the sarco prefix just means muscle. Okay, so inside, you know how you have the muscle and then you have the fascicle and then you have the individual muscle cells. Well, each individual muscle cell is further divided up into units called sarcomeres. And sarcomeres are, remember kids, without muscles, you would not be a dead girl walking? Without muscles. Right, because you need muscles to walk. That makes sense. Okay. So these sarcomeres are actually what allow you to walk. So you can be a not dead walking or whatever other movement you want to do, because like how muscles make you move is they like contract. Yeah. So these sarcomeres are actually like what's contracting inside your muscle. So you have a bunch of them, but I'm just gonna draw one. And then of course, because school stinks, we have to memorize each little individual part of the sarcomere. So we'll start with the end. The ends of the sarcomeres are called the Z-disc because they're kind of zigzag. Kind of looks like a bunch of the letter Z. Yeah. Okay. So then in the middle of the sarcomere, you have a line called the M line. You can just remember like M for middle. And then if you know how muscles contract, you know you have like actin and myosin, but I'm not going to get into that right now. But basically, you have these thin fibers, also known as filaments, and these thick ones. And the thin ones are the axon, and the thick ones are the myosin. What's important to know right now is these C discs are attached to your actin, aka your thin muscle fibers. And then this M line right here is connected to your thick filament fiber, whatever you want to. Filament is the correct word. And so then they kind of overlap a little bit. And so when the muscle contracts, they like pull on each other and it pulls it and brings it in, closer and closer, and it gets smaller. So anyway, in addition to that, all these little like areas in the sarcomere also have individual names that we gotta memorize. So this area right here, where it's like just this thin filament, is called the I band. And a way to remember that is that there's the letter I in light, and since it's like the thin filament, if you look at it in a microscope, it's very light right here. There's also like an I band over here. It's on both sides. And then in the middle, not in the middle, but right here where both the thin and the thick overlap, that's called the A band. You can remember the letter A is in the word like dark, and it's very dark there because, they're the thin and the thick are overlapping. And then it's in the middle right here, this little like rectangle I'm drawing, that's called the H sound, where it's just the thick, and it's slightly lighter because it doesn't have the thin filament overlapping with it. It's just the thick stuff. So that's the H zone. And then when your muscle contracts, these guys slide past each other, come closer, and then this H zone right here disappears. Again, I'm very, very sorry for the blurry camera and the probably I don't know. I hope you can see. Okay. There's some other things, but unfortunately the PowerPoint I'm looking at is not that good, so I'm going to have to read the book. And I hate reading the book. So, in addition to all that lovely stuff, if you remember, in biology, I don't know if y'all are in high school or if you're in middle school or we're all up very late, yeah, so probably in high school. In biology, you learn about endoplasmic reticulum, or at least you had to look at a picture and identify it. Muscles also have endoplasmic reticulum, but it's called sarcoplasmic reticulum once again, and sarco means muscle. But instead of being on the inside of the muscle cell, the sarcoplasmic reticulum is all around it on the outside of the cell. And then you also have these things called transverse tubules, where basically they take the outside of the cell and it just dips down basically all the way through, I'm pretty sure, but it's still it's the outside. And then finally at the end they have these things called terminal cisternae, I believe. Cistern is a container, specifically a container, perhaps something the Romans built cisterns to hold their water. I believe they did. But anyway, I believe in here there's calcium. I will have to double check that, but I believe so. So yeah, by the way, that's why you're supposed to drink milk and all that. It's not just for your bones. You have to have calcium in order for your muscles to move. And calcium is also what causes rigor mortis when you die. So you will be a stiff corpse because of calcium, and I will be a stiff corpse if Heather gets to me. But it's a good thing that I ran off to Seattle. Yeah, sorry, JD, but yeah. Okay, so with these transverse tubules, what happens is when it's time for the muscle to contract, you have a little electrical signal, I believe, and it travels along the outside of the muscle, but then here it's able to go inside and tell these guys to release the calcium. And then once the calcium is released, that's what can actually cause the whole muscle to contract. So how does this happen? I know, right? That new kid is he's so handsome, but there's something going on with him that he's not quite right. Maybe I'll find a cute guy in Seattle, and I'll marry a lawyer, and I won't have to think about him anymore. So, in order to get your muscle to contract, you have to get a signal from your brain. So that happens at a place called the neuromuscular junction. Junction literally means where two things, come together. Neuro means your brain, muscular, your muscles. So that one's not too hard to remember. So you have your nervous cell. It's not actually a brain cell. It probably comes from the spinal cord. And then you have your muscle cell. So what happens is the signal to get your muscle to move travels along the axon of the brain cell, which if you know, like a brain cell kind of, not brain cell, I'm sorry, the nerve cell. Nerve cell looks like that, yeah? Here's the axon, so that's where it goes. And then it goes to these little guys right here called the synaptic knobs, which have little things called vesicles. Which are literally just like little guys that hold chemicals inside of them. And for this particular, action, in this case muscle contraction, the little chemical guy you're going to need is called acetylcholine. So the signal comes down here, causes the little vesicles inside of these guys to release acetylcholine. So it comes out into like the space between the nerve cell and the muscle cell, and that little space right there is called the synaptic cleft. And then these little guys attach to the motor end plate, which is the part of the muscle cell that has receptors for these guys to attach to. And then that is what starts the electrical signal that then releases the calcium and causes the contraction, blah, 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 blah. Okay, so the final thing to say in this half of the lesson is to talk about a motor unit, which is a nerve cell, and then all the muscle cells that it attaches to, because like these nerve cells have all these. Oh, my marker is almost dead, and I thought it was a good juicy marker too. But it's not. So the nerve cell has all these, I think they're called, no, the dendrites are up here. So I forget what these are called, and I need to look that up. Holy cow. It has the axon, and then it has these guys, whatever they're called. And each of these guys can like attach to a different muscle cell. Okay, so a motor unit is basically one nerve cell, and then all the different muscle cells that it can attach to, because like I drew here, there can be multiple little guys, so multiple muscle cells that it can attach to. And basically, like, if you need a really like gentle muscle contraction, I'm just going to pick up my cup, it doesn't take much. Your brain only takes a couple of these like motor units to pick the thing up, to make the contraction. But if I need like a really big, powerful force, aka if Heather Chandler is gonna tell Heather Duke to shut up and push her over, she needs to be very strong, to use a lot of muscle force. Her nervous system is going to recruit a lot of these motor units in order to make that strong, forceful motion. And finally, these motor units are not like all of them are put together. It's like the muscle cells of each motor unit are like put in different spots. So it's not like one spot of the muscle contracts and then another spot, it's like it's spread out, so you can get like a contraction of the muscle altogether, if that makes any sort of sense. Okay, so that is part 1 of this tutoring session. And now I'm going to take a drink and switch PowerPoints. So let me know if you just want to talk while I'm switching PowerPoints. Go ahead. I would love to talk to you guys. Okay. Just water. No Drano today. Sorry, guys. Okay, so I'm going to switch markers, see if I can find one that isn't dead. I need to just buy some. Yeah, I know. Gosh, that is my blue. That is my... Hello, this is the actual person and not the character. I hate that song. Blue. Anyway. Okay, so now we're going to learn about muscle contractions, like, I guess, how they're graphed. So we learn the parts of a muscle. Now we're going to learn about the phases of a muscle contraction. So if I draw us a graph, oh, that is a nice marker. Okay, so I draw us a graph, and this axis right here, this is time. So I'm going to draw a clock. And this axis right here is force. And then this little point of origin right here, that is the time when your brain sends the signal. It says, make the muscle contract. Okay, so what you have for a muscle contraction is when the brain sends a signal, your muscle doesn't contract right away. There's like a little bit of lag, between the time when the brain says it and between the time the muscle can actually contract. Oh, I totally didn't get that reference. I'm sorry. Anyway, so the graph kind of looks a little like this. You have like your just time when nothing happens, and then the muscle contracts, and there's a lot of force, and then it comes back down. So, yeah, the graph's actually pretty accurate. I'm proud of that. So right here, when nothing happens, this is called the latent phase. I believe latent just means like dormant, like it's in waiting, but it hasn't happened yet. And then right here, when the force goes up, that's the contraction phase because, your muscle's contracting like harder and harder. And then over here, so latent contraction, and then here, as it goes back down, that's called the relaxation phase because it's not contracting anymore. Next up, so that is like the graph for one muscle twitch. So if the brain just sends one signal, like contract, your muscle is one little twitch. It contracts and then it relaxes. And this is like unnoticeable. You can't feel it. So for muscle contractions that you can actually feel, you need something called summation. And now I will draw a graph for summation. Okay, so we have the same axis. That's force and that's time. So what happens for summation is your brain says right here, tells your muscle, okay, contract. So it does. There's the latent phase and then the contraction phase and then the relaxation phase starts. But before it can relax fully, your brain sends another signal to contract. And so your muscle contracts again, and this time like the force gets stronger. And when it keeps doing that, as you can see, each time your force gets higher and higher. And that is called wavation because you have these like waves, these contractions, and they are adding together, aka like a sum. And then to have like a big strong, what's it called? Like imagine you're pushing on a wall or something. You're pushing with like as much force as you can. Your muscles are contracting as hard as you can. That is called tetanus. That is the same word as like, the deadly disease perhaps that you've been scared of or gotten like a shot for, because tetanus actually causes your muscles to just like contract super hard and you cannot stop them, and it's very, very scary, very bad. But tetanus in this case, you have force and time, and what that is just like a sustained muscle contraction, like as hard as you can basically. So for that to happen, you have your muscle starts signal, and eventually your muscle can't contract with any more force. It's just like at its max power, and it's sustained, and that's tetanus right here. But then eventually your muscle cannot, eventually your muscles get tired. It cannot hold that contraction anymore. So then the force goes down. Your muscle's just like, I don't know if you've ever felt that before. Your muscle just like gives out. That is called fatigue. And that is the graph of it. And yeah, that's about it. I hope I passed this quiz. Oh my gosh. is you don't understand. This teacher's quizzes are so freaking hard. So yeah, that's the that was her PowerPoint that I just went through. So any questions or just want to talk? I'm done for today. Or like if you're some student and like if you need help in math or English, I can help with that. I cannot help you in physics though. It was so bad. Or I'll just be done. Right now. But, okay. Well, I'm gonna just erase this and good night, everybody. You're probably like teenage age, you know. Go to bed at a reasonable time. I'm gonna try to get in before 12:30. That's a good bedtime. Believe it or not, if you get less than like basically 5 hours of sleep, if you are getting 5 hours of sleep or less, you are actively shortening your lifespan. So again, please don't stay up too late. Girly, do not spend all night playing Minecraft. You are going to die if you do that. No. Also, what's Minecraft? It's 1989, yeah? What's Minecraft? Okay, well. Good night.